Good morning, everyone. My name is Natalie Matias, and I am the Community Engagement Manager with the Watershed Project. I am also the Wildcat Watershed Innovation, Leadership, and Development, or WILD Program Manager. And I'm incredibly excited to share with you all the Watershed Project's WILD approach to community empowerment this morning. So thank you all for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about our work and this wonderful project with you all. Now, just a little quick information about myself. My name, again, is Natalie Matias. I have been with the Watershed Project coming up on a year in April. Prior to this, most of my experience is comprised of working with the National Park Service in a number of different capacities and roles. And so it's always fun to share some of the videos that I took. So I took that video of that big old gator in the bottom left corner there. But just a little bit about me. And for those of you who might be unfamiliar with the Watershed Project, we are a Richmond-based nonprofit dedicated to inspiring San Francisco Bay Area communities to understand, appreciate, and protect our local watersheds. And we have been committed to this mission for well over 20 years. A quick overview of the Watershed Project's organizational structure. The Watershed Project is comprised of 5 core programs. You can see them on your screen. I work most closely with the Climate Ready Communities program. The Climate Ready Communities program mostly connects communities with agencies and project planners so that projects have a more community-oriented planning process. The Climate Ready Communities team manages the Wildcat Watershed Stewards Project, which encompasses the WILD program. Now, the Wildcat Watershed Stewards Project, its goal is really to spur collaborative action to restore and protect Contra Costa County's Wildcat Creek. I mentioned that our mission is really to help folks all over the San Francisco Bay Area community get more in tune with their local watersheds, but our home and where most of our work comprises of is actually in Western Contra Costa County. And so this project, as I mentioned, is going to spur collaborative action to restore and protect the creek. This project is funded by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, bipartisan infrastructure law, with funds from the San Francisco Bay Water Quality Improvement Fund. We have designed this project to be comprised of 4 main objectives: the development of a community leadership team, i.e. the WILD program, offering a number of creek exploration opportunities that are across the entire watershed. We also are continuing to put forth youth workforce development and training opportunities, which in our case is the Green Collar Corps program. And I'll share a little more about that further along in the presentation. And lastly, public or family education opportunities. And this is really so that if we are not able to engage community members through the other 3 initiatives, having them be a part of a leadership team, having them participate on guided activities, creek exploration opportunities, or being involved in our GCC program, this is our attempt at casting a really wide net to make sure that we are including as many community members of all ages, demographics, and backgrounds as possible. So what is the WILD program? Well, the WILD program is a leadership and development program dedicated to empowering community members and building their capacity so that they can help shape the future of Wildcat Creek via the RERAP. Now, many of you worked on the RAP, or Wildcat Restoration Action Plan, that was finalized back in 2010. The RAP, while its goal was to develop a restoration action plan, it did do that. It identified a number of projects in a small section of Wildcat Creek, mostly within the city of San Pablo. It identified a number of projects there that could help improve the health of the watershed. And so the RAP is going to be redone. And this project is also funded by the EPA and managed by the San Francisco Estuary Partnership. So the WILD program, being a leadership program that empowers community members to help shape the future of Wildcat Creek, is going to complement the REWRAP project. So a few characteristics or key characteristics to note about the WILD program. We meet monthly, typically the second Saturday of each month. We meet for 4 hours at a time, and these sessions are a combination of indoor and outdoor sessions. The activities that we are putting forth, or the content of the materials, there are never any lectures. So we always make sure that the activities that we're designing are hands-on, engaging, and that we offer a number of different mediums for which the WILD participants to learn and take in information. Another key characteristic about this program is that participants are reimbursed for their time. They are also offered transportation to and from meetings or field trips. They are provided meals during meetings. And something that I think is very different than what I've been seeing around the Bay Area is that these meetings are actually facilitated simultaneously in English and Spanish. So it's an opportunity for folks that don't speak the same language to still connect and build community and spur that collaborative action that we were discussing. So I am live translating the entire workshop or meeting, and it really gives folks an opportunity to just engage with their neighbors and not have to worry about not being able to speak the language. And honestly, they get to practice a little. It's really sweet. And also, another important characteristic about this program is that I consider us dependent-friendly spaces. So we not only allow, but we invite and welcome folks to bring their loved ones. If you were a single mother and wanted to participate in this program, but didn't have anyone to watch your kids, that can be seen as a barrier to participating. And so we want to try to remove as many barriers as humanly possible, so that folks feel empowered, encouraged, and comfortable in being involved in a program like this. Now, a quick overview of the current project timeline. This project was funded back in April of 2024. So last year, we began conducting background research and putting together the bones of the program, if you will. Then from August to October, we conducted outreach and participant recruitment. We interviewed participants and selected individuals whose schedule and goals aligned with our program. Since August of 2024, we have had 45 individuals express interest in participating in the program. And so as of now, we have, I want to say, a 25-person wait list to participate. And so it's really nice to see that communities are interested in this kind of project or opportunity. Now, we were able to conduct recruitment on a rolling basis. So I was conducting interviews until a couple of days before our first meeting on October 19th. And since October, we have been really just conducting a participant-led learning process that gives folks an opportunity to share their lived experience living, working within the watershed, but it also gives folk an opportunity to build their shared understanding of the watershed and the hardships it faces. Now, how the WILD program works, I've kind of hinted at this already, but really our guiding principle is that we are here to meet people where they're at and build from there. When designing this program, we were trying, or excuse me, when designing this program, we knew that rather than assume or guess what knowledge gaps community members had or what community members wanted to learn more about, it was better just to ask them. And so throughout each meeting that we have, you'll notice that we are constantly asking community members what they would like to learn more about, if there was something that they didn't understand. And so really taking baby steps, starting small, starting with the basics. And so something that I also want to really quickly point out, the rewrap being put together by SFEP and a number of other partners, actually including us, is that the goal for SFEP's project is to build a holistic approach to designing the new wrap. And so we know that historically, communities in Richmond, San Pablo, and North Richmond have been left out of watershed planning efforts in the past. And so we also know that for a project to be successful and used by community members, we have to get their opinion, their thoughts in every stage of the planning process. And so we specifically offered this program to community members in the lower portion of the creek. When you think about it, the areas around Richmond, San Pablo, and North Richmond are the most underserved communities within the boundaries of Wildcat Creek, and they're also the most under-resourced communities. And so that is why we decided to make sure that we were supporting folks in the lower portion of the creek. Now, I can continue to tell you more about our engagement strategy and how we develop the content for this meeting. The Watershed Project has had a long history of developing dynamic and engaging community engagement strategies that build community capacity and interest in protecting local watersheds. But really, there's just pictures can share more than I ever could. So on the left here, you'll notice our question board. This is actually the question board from our first meeting back in October. We asked participants to share questions that they had about the watershed, what they thought they needed to know to be able to help plan the future of the creek. And these first series of questions helped guide the formulation of the content for the workshops up until this point. And so these questions are refreshed, if you will, during each meeting. And so the content from each meeting builds on content from the previous meeting. So you might notice that let's see, I might even, let's see if I can zoom. Oh, cool, I can zoom. So let's just read really quickly some of the questions that folks had. We have, are there any invasive species here? Interesting question. ¿Cuáles pescados viven en el creek? So which fish live in the creek? ¿Qué clase de truchas son las que existen en el creek de Richmond? What kind of trout are the kind that live in Wildcat Creek in Richmond? So you guys can see that I could assume that they might have not known stuff about steelhead trout, but it's just better to ask, and they can tell you what they need and what would best be supportive for them. Now, in this image, another example of hands-on, collaborative, and diverse opportunities to learn. You'll notice the individual right over here. She's checking out a document that is mostly comprised of text. This is Maria, and she is learning about the life cycle of steelhead trout by reading this information. But then we also have another wild leader, also called Maria, and her son Julian here, also learning about the life cycle of steelhead trout, except they are taking this information in using a series of graphic images. So, and then also right here in the middle of the table, we have some images of steelhead trout throughout different stages of their life. And we asked folks to at first, we asked them to put together the order in which they think these pictures should go so that they could just get their wheels turning of like, okay, how might this life cycle look like? We discussed it all together as a group, what people's thoughts were. And then we went over these materials that highlighted the actual life cycle. And so folks then had the opportunity to compare what they designed to the actual process. And we can see that presenting information in this way, as opposed to a lecture, is going to be way more impactful and beneficial and stick with these community members longer than having done just a regular old talk or lecture. Now, another example of making sure that we are creating opportunities that are fun and exciting and hands-on. We actually have an image here of our wild leaders exploring a mural at the Richmond Greenway. And so this is an opportunity for folks to learn about their local resources that they might have not known about before. But exploring this resource via a scavenger hunt. So we divided folks into groups, sent them out to identify or find a number of different cool or fun things along the Greenway, and folks just kind of dispersed and got to work in pairs, and it was really fun. And when folks came back from this scavenger hunt, if I had a nickel for how many people let me know that they didn't know that this existed or the many things that the Richmond Greenway existed, I would be a millionaire. And also, I wanted to share this image with you all because this is actually a picture of our wild leaders conducting a presentation on some research they completed on the Wildcat Creek People's Plan designed in the 80s. So we always are trying to make sure that folks have an opportunity not only to learn, but also practice synthesizing information, practicing public speaking, conveying a message to a certain audience, working with groups. And so folks loved getting to share what they learned during their case study review with the rest of the group. Now, as I mentioned, folks in the WILD program are going to be putting forth opportunities for community members, their friends and neighbors to also help support our goals with Wildcat Creek, but they are leaders at the end of the day. And so the rewrap is a bit away, and folks are eager to get work done in Wildcat Creek and engage with communities. And so this year for Earth Day, the Watershed Project and the Wild Community Leaders will be celebrating Earth Day on April 19th. They actually helped us design most of the activities that we'll be putting forth to the public for Earth Day. They decided that the best way to engage community members, for example, one of the activities we'll be offering during the Shields Reed Earth Day Festival is we actually designed a loteria game. Loteria is very popular to Hispanics. It is the equivalent of bingo, But it gets real crazy, really fun, and people get really invested in it. They mentioned, like, wouldn't it be awesome if we could have a Wildcat Creek or a nature-based loteria game? And so the Watershed Project team said, all right, if that's what you guys want, we can definitely make that happen. And so we've put together a number of activities that they will be leading and facilitating on Earth Day. So on Earth Day at the Wildcat Creek cleanup that Paula mentioned earlier, leaders will actually be leading that trash cleanup. And at the Shields Reed Earth Day Festival, they will be facilitating most, if not all, of the family education activities that are being offered. And last, they will, of course, be sharing information on the WILD program with their friends and neighbors. And so if any of you are interested in meeting some of the WILD members or joining us on Earth Day, I highly encourage you to come check us out. The WILD leaders really would love to share more information on Wildcat Creek with everyone. So please, please, please come on out and check us out on Earth Day. But if that did not give you a good enough picture of the work we are doing with the WILD program, I'd love for you to hear it from one of our actual community WILD leaders. And so I have a clip here from one of our program participants named Mira, where she highlights some of our work. And I'll leave this with you all before I wrap up. So let me know if you guys have trouble hearing, by the way.
So during the first few months of 2024 in the WILD program, we learned so much about our local ecosystem, Wildcat Creek Watershed, and how it's changed so much in the last 100 years. And also the threats that it's facing moving into the future with things like increased drought conditions and extreme heat temperatures that we're facing. And so for 2025, what I'm most excited about is working with my fellow community members to come up with ideas about how we want to see our watershed restored, and also learning how we can advocate our community leaders to see those changes become a reality.
Now, I tried my best to share the WILD program with you all in 20 minutes or less. So thank you, thank you, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share our work with you all. In case anyone has any questions about the program or anything at all, comments, please feel free to reach out. I have my email and phone number on the screen.
Thank you guys so much for having me today. My name is Alyse Lightfoot. I'm a recreation coordinator with City of San Ramon, and my purview is historic properties and nature programs for City of San Ramon. I was hired specifically because in the city's master plan, the residents, when they were asked what they wanted focused on, they said, we want nature programs, and San Ramon doesn't currently have any. And all of the staff, while they're really great at outdoor recreation for sports and soccer and stuff, they don't really have a background in natural history, biology, or any of that. We have a very engaged demographic. Most of the residents in San Ramon come from Silicon Valley, or they're doctors and lawyers, and they're very interested in STEM or STEAM now. So one of the things that I've been doing with my nature programs is I try to focus a lot, because it's my own personal passion, but also it's a demand from our service demographic, is I try to really focus the kinds of programs that I'm doing with not just fostering an appreciation and connection with nature, but also focusing on the science end of things. And as Lisa mentioned earlier, we are doing Earth Quarter this year. So one of the things that I wanted to do for nature programs in San Ramon is I was asked to come up with an Earth Day celebration, which is great. I mean, Earth Day is wonderful. We all love it. But I also kind of feel like Earth Day is just a single day. Most places are already doing something for Earth Day, so the amount of engagement that you're going to get with the public tends to be pretty low. Just because there's tons of stuff going on everywhere. And I think people just get overwhelmed with it, and they'll go to like their local library or something, but they're not necessarily going to come to your celebration. So putting a lot of effort into getting like a bunch of community organizations and everything to come out to Earth Day can be a wash. You don't always know if it's going to be worth that effort. So what I wanted to do this year was Earth Quarter, to emphasize the fact that we should be thinking about the Earth and our connection with nature, not just on a single day of the year, but the entire year. And to also space it out so that when we're doing partnerships, we're highlighting them in a way that they're getting good public engagement. And that the public is getting a lot out of it as well, because like I said, on Earth Day tends to be a lot going on. I think a lot of people get overwhelmed by it. That said, I do want to say that we do have an Earth Day celebration at Forest Home Farms. We're a tree city, so we do plant a tree every year on Earth Day. And we do a compost giveaway, and we have lots of tables with information since we are a historic property and we have a Victorian house. One of the things we do for Earth Day is I do an exhibit called Looking to the Past to Inform the Future. We talk about how, for most of human history, people lived pretty sustainably because they had to. And so we talk about how most people did zero waste shopping up until the point the plastics were invented. And we give lots of examples from our museum because we have an artifact collection with over 10,000 artifacts. So we show them, like swanky swigs from the Great Depression, where you would, buy your cheese or your milk or whatever, but then you reuse that bottle. We have the flour sack dresses and all different kinds of things. And also a lot of emphasis on, growing your own food and using what's around you and repurposing things. We also do a Victorian hazards exhibit, which talks about how a lot of the hazards from the Victorian era people think of as like, oh, well, we've learned so much since then, and environmental pollution isn't a thing anymore. And what we really emphasize with that exhibit is that no, a lot of the hazards that were in the Victorian era, like lead poisoning, still exist today. And also with natural gas and fossil fuels, like they kind of got popularized during the Victorian era, but they're still around and we're still dealing with it. And so it's a really great tie-in to everyday issues. For Earth Quarter, we kicked that off with a Dark Skies Alliance walk and talk, where Dark Skies International came out and took people for a walk around San Ramon and showed them, how light affects their city, and how light pollution can affect not only their mental health, but the behavior of the animals and wildlife and plants around them. And then gave them really concrete tools and like knowledge so that they could go forward and not only in their own homes change out their lighting to be better, putting things on timers and getting more efficient lighting that's going to not only save them money, but also lower the impacts of light pollution. They were also given the tools on how to evaluate their city's ordinances on lighting, what kind of language you should be looking for, what kind of policies your city should be implementing, and what kind of goalposts you should have for that, and what the benefits of that are. It ended up being really popular. I think our first one had 9 signups and our second one had 18 signups, which was really great. People really enjoyed it. They had a great time. The speaker was very engaging, and it was a lot of fun. And it was really surprising too how in depth you can get just on the topic of lighting. We got to walk all around City Hall. We walked over to a shopping center and really got to get into the nuts and bolts of the lighting in our city, which was pretty cool. We also want everything to be very accessible for nature programs. And so one thing that I'm always looking towards is trying to make programs free. So the walk and talk was free. And we also are doing something called nature letterboxing, which if you don't know what letterboxing is, it's kind of like geocaching, but you don't have to use a GPS. A lot of times there'll be clues, or sometimes people will just post an address. And it's kind of like a little treasure hunt. You get to go find these boxes. What we did for this to try to connect people to nature is we hid the boxes in different parks that we wanted people to visit. And inside each box were different ways for them to engage with that park once they found the box. So the kind of the hook that I use is a long time ago, I invented a a holiday called Wooshogging, and nobody knows what that is because I made it up, but I've been celebrating it for like 15 years now. And so I put that in the box and I said, if you want to find out what moose hogging is, you're going to have to go find the boxes. But then once they find the box, they get to learn all about the park that they're in. So we have a bunch of fun facts, different activities and things that you can do, and lots of different ideas for like playing, right? Like to have fun. You know, we would include a scavenger hunt and I Spy. We would also, you know, one of the parks that we had the box hidden in is near the recreation center and the library. And so we also included really fun facts about the library. And the whole idea was things that you can do for free, that you can do anytime, that are super accessible, that you don't need any gear for, because I think a lot of stuff tends to get pretty commercialized and like people always think, oh, I've got to register and I have to be on this schedule and I can't just go out and be in nature. And especially for our demographic, they are very scheduled and they're very regimented. So this was to try to encourage them to be a little bit more whimsical with it, a little bit more spontaneous, and introduce them to parks that they probably haven't been to before. So this is still ongoing. This ends on the 14th. We're going to be collecting the boxes on the 17th to give everyone an extra weekend to find them. And we've already gotten really great feedback. A lot of people are having a ton of fun with it. People have been sharing pictures and different posts of them finding the boxes. And we've had people of all ages participate in this, from little kids all the way up to retirees and working people. And so it's been really fun. And we've been getting great feedback, which is wonderful because it is the first time that we're doing this. And it's always nerve-wracking the first time you do any kind of program because you don't know, is it going to be a hit? Is it going to be a miss? Are people going to like it? Are they going to hate it? But so far, it's been really positive. Other things that we're doing for Earth Quarter is we are doing some birding. Avian flu, I'm hoping won't throw too much of a wrench in it because we're not getting up close and personal with the birds. And we did schedule this like before it was becoming more prevalent. But one of the things that we're doing is we have a partnership that we're building with Golden Gate Bird Alliance. And so we have some of their birders that are coming out on a voluntary basis, which is wonderful, to teach people about birding in San Ramon. And one of the things that I really want to highlight in San Ramon is most of the time people think of San Ramon as being very urban. They think of it as a city. They're not really thinking of it as like nature, right? They're thinking, oh, if I want nature, I'm going to have to go out to Mount Diablo, or I'm going to have to go into East Bay Regional Parks. I'm not going to be able to do nature stuff right here in my own city, right? And so one of my emphases for my programs is I'm trying to focus on urban nature. And if you go on to eBird or use the Merlin Bird ID app, what you'll find is that San Ramon actually has a huge amount of bird diversity. In any one of our parks, you can find over 20 species of birds. Crow Canyon Gardens, which is one of my office sites, or one of the sites that there's no office there, but I spent a lot of time there for programming. There's been over 84 species of birds recorded. We have Annabelle Lake, which is a man-made lake, but it's one of the only large bodies of water in San Ramon, and it is a place that migratory birds tend to go to. It's not on their migratory map as far as like what's in their mind that they're coming here every year, but we end up getting a ton of stopovers from they're flying over, they see the body of water and they go, oh, it's a great place to take lunch, right? And because of that, we get tons of great bird diversity. We get cormorants, we get all different kinds of ducks, and it's pretty cool. So I wanted to highlight that. So we're doing family intro to birding at Annabelle Lake, and we're doing an adult intro to birding. The family one is, we picked a lake because ducks are easy to spot if you're brand new to birding. You don't need binoculars to see them. They tend to stay in one spot, so you can really see the markings that are on them, unlike some of the songbirds, which can be hard to see right off the bat because they're in the bushes and they move kind of fast. And we're going to be doing games as well. So we have a life-size board game that's a migration game with giant dice, where they get to roll the dice and they go to different spots around the lake to find out how their migration is going. And each sign has something like, you know, you roll a 6 and you go up to it and you're like, oh, you land and, you know, a cat comes after you, or you randomly find a nature reserve and you eat really well and you can fly twice as far, you know, the next day, or you get to your overwintering spot and it's been turned into an apartment complex. And it kind of just is designed to help people get thinking about what wildlife is going through when they're having to deal with humans, and the ways in which human encroachment is kind of pushing that apart. But that it doesn't have to be that way. We can work together and we can live together and they can be our wild neighbors and it can be fine. So we're going to have those games along with some crafts, and we'll have some birders out there to teach like the basics of birding, as well as how to use binoculars and spotting scopes. And I'm hoping that that will be pretty fun. And then Intro to Birding is on April 12th. And April 12th is kind of our biggest day for Earth Quarter, because since Earth Day is pretty impacted, we're doing a lot of our stuff leading up to April 12th, and then this Earth Day celebration at Forest Home Farms on Earth Day. So oh, that's out of order. Where is the one that I wanted to get to? Sorry, that slide was out of order. So we're also having where is it going? Oh, we have our Earth panel series. So I think a lot of people have been feeling pretty down in the dumps about a lot of current events. So one of the things that I wanted to focus on with our panel series is solutions that they can implement right where they're at. So it's high impact solutions that anybody can implement to try to give people ideas for how to get involved in like their local city councils. We have different kinds of panelists. So we are going to have Dark Skies International. We're going to have some people from the Native Plant Association doing a Doug Tallamy style introduction to biodiversity using native plants. We are going to have some former city council members that helped found what is now known as Ava Energy, but it used to be East Bay Community Energy, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's a pretty incredible thing where basically a bunch of cities and counties banded together and founded their own utility company that uses the PG&E grid, but it's entirely 100% renewable energy sources. So they went out and they bought, windmills and solar panels to power it. And if you're on it, it's pretty cool. The entire city of Hayward is now on it, and they are years ahead of their carbon emissions goals just from that. And so I thought that was pretty inspiring. And so I wanted to highlight that and say, hey, like, you think that it's overwhelming and that there's no way to do this without getting rid of cars, but actually you can hit your carbon emissions goals. You can make a huge difference in the city that you are in, just by doing some of these things. And it goes far beyond recycling, because like, I feel like the Earth Day celebrations I've been to, it's always been like these little nothing nonsense things like, oh, just recycle and use less water. And it's not that impactful, right? With a lot of previous Earth Day events, I feel like the focus was on like, oh, just use less water and recycle more, or recycle harder, right? Like, or like turn your pants into a bag. But like most people don't actually need that. So these panels focus on bigger impact things, like how you can look at your building ordinances in your city, because your city council and your city manager have control over the building codes, right, that are implemented in your city. And you can do things like phasing out natural gas and electrifying your grid, which drops your carbon emissions and is more energy efficient. And there's like all of these different things you can do. So that's what our Earth Panel series is going to be focusing on. Also, just in your own backyard, just by planting natives. I mean, if you just keep your oak tree alive, you're helping keep over 300 species that are dependent on that oak tree alive. Like, it's huge for biodiversity, right? And it's also great for water conservation. And so there's like all these things that like are very accessible, like planting a native garden, or getting involved with your city council, or advocating to join Ava Energy, which is expanding in the Bay Area. And Contra Costa County is not currently part of the Ava Energy yet, but they have an opportunity to. So we're hoping that with this Earth Day, we can encourage them to speak up and say, hey, yeah, we really want to be a part of that. So those Earth Day panels are going to be Thursday, April 10th from 6 to 8 p.m. and Saturday, April 12th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then some of the other stuff that we have going on, and then I'm going to get into volunteer opportunities and how you guys can help us, is, how do I get back to my show? There we go. So we have our Intro to Birding, we have our panel series. We're also partnering with nonprofits like Plantify to do different kinds of walks. So we did a mushroom walk. We have an upcoming wildflower walk on April 5th to give people some of the more traditional things that I think people anticipate when they hear about nature programs. So we do have some of the more traditional stuff. We have a nature story time that has been very popular. Again, I'm always trying to highlight the different things that are right here in San Ramon. So it's a quarterly nature story time, and each season we're going to a different location in San Ramon that is a place of natural beauty. So we did Annabelle Lake, we did Forest Home Farms, we're going to be at Crow Canyon Gardens in the spring. And each story time includes a story, a craft, or a game, and a game or a song that are themed. So like when we're in Crow Canyon Gardens, we're going to be focusing on native plants and native bees. So we have a native bee story time. I think we have a butterfly story time because Crow Canyon Gardens is a huge biodiverse hotspot for San Ramon. It has potentially one of the few breeding populations of pipevine swallowtail butterflies because we do have a lot of native plants there. And I am hoping eventually to do some more native plant restoration and invasive species removal in that particular garden. I'll talk more about that later. And so we're going to be focusing on that for story time and teaching the kids that. It's also a great opportunity for them to be out in the garden and to enjoy that. And then another part of the Earth Quarter is our Teen Environmental Stewardship. This is a new program. This is the first year. I mean, these are all new programs, but this is the first time we're attempting something like this. The first one didn't get a lot of traction, so I think I'm going to have to change up my marketing because we actually had to cancel the first one. Nobody enrolled for it, but we do have some signups for the second one. And the concept behind this one is a lot of the teens here are pretty on, like they're very concerned about what they're going to get to put on into their portfolios for college applications. That's one of the primary things that guides how they choose the programs that they decide to get involved in. Is every time they're doing a program, they just want to know, well, how's this going to look on paper? How's this going to look on my resume? Is it going to help me get into college? And they tend to also be very STEM oriented. And a lot of our teens here are into coding. They're into the Silicon Valley tech stuff. And I want to show them that there are other career options that can be, you know, not always as lucrative, but just as interesting and just as science heavy in the environmental sector. And so we're inviting guest speakers that are experts in their field on a diversity of topics. So talking about, we have somebody from Eco Builders that retrofits houses to electrify them so that they can phase out natural gas and things like that. We have Lisa Demerol is going to talk and share some of what Contra Costa Resource District is up to. We have scientists and biologists. We've got former city council members and mayors. And so just like really pulling in a lot of different sectors to give the kids a taste of what is out there beyond coding. And the other thing that they are doing is they're going to do a capstone project because all of them have volunteer hour requirements to graduate from high school. So before they can graduate high school, they have to do X amount of volunteer hours, which is service learning. So they're very interested in that. And so to try to help them out with that, they're going to create an activity that will be used either on Earth Day that they'll get to do a public presentation on, so an activity of some sort to present at Earth Day, or in our nature summer camps, because we have summer camps that we do throughout San Ramon, and we have a nature day camp. And so they get a chance to actually do something that's going to get used right away and that they'll get to practice doing that with. So if they're doing the summer camp one, if they're interested in education at all, it teaches them a little bit about curriculum design. It teaches them a little bit about making an age-appropriate activity, and it's also very creative because they can do anything. They can do a presentation, they can do a game, they can do an arts or a craft, but it has to be environmentally themed based on something that they learned about from the guest speakers. For the first one that got canceled, we were going to have them do an Earth Day activity that they would present on Earth Day. And so I'm hoping that this will grow, and we'll see how it goes next year. We've got, I think, 4 or 5 people signed up for the second one right now. So if you know anybody who might be interested in it, please direct them to me. We also have a Crow Canyon Garden speaker series where we invite a lot of UC Master gardeners and a lot of anybody who has a passion and interest and expertise in gardening to teach what they know, right? Because a big part of community engagement and also a big part of growing this is like helping each other out. So share the knowledge that you have. This is a free program. And this is the lineup that we have right now. It's the first Saturday of every month. It follows our Crow Canyon Garden Workday. So if you're interested in volunteering in the garden, you can come to that first and then stick around for the speaker series.
which is a great introduction to the garden. We're also working with Headwaters Science Institute, and we're doing science field days. So the next one that we have coming up is Urban Nature and City Critters. We already did a hydrology one and an entomology, a bug science day. These are our summer camps that we have going on. And then we're also trying other creative ways of getting people involved with the garden. We did a winter wassail, which is really nice. Wassail, if you don't know it, it's like the origins of caroling. So before people moved to cities, when they were in their gardens all the time, they would do, especially for, it's like mostly targeted towards apple trees. You would go and sing to your trees and give them a little bit of what they gave you back. So some of the cider and dried apples or whatever kind of produce that you got from them. And you would give it back to the garden to feed the wildlife and to thank the trees for what they've done and to wish them a good harvest for the next year and a lot of bounty. And then you'd make a lot of noise and drink a lot of cider to scare away any bad spirits. And so I thought that's pretty fun and easy way to engage people in the garden and get them out there to start thinking about if they want to be there more. So we did a wassail. So some ways that other people can get involved is one, I'm always looking for experts that are interested in helping to do workshops or presentations. If you want to get involved in our summer camps, always looking, or in the garden, I'm always looking for volunteers. I am hoping to start building a nature docent program because I want to build out our field trip program at Forest Home Farms. We have a farm life and a Victorian life. We've got 3 field trips currently. So for TK, we have a 5 senses field trip tour. For 3rd grade, we have a farm life tour, and for 2nd grade, we have a Victorian life tour. And I want to add in a 1st grade botany tour that will take place in the garden, a kindergarten 5 senses tour, and a 4th grade Ohlone tour. And I'm going to need volunteers that have that are interested and passionate in working with kids and leading those tours. So if anybody is interested in that, I'm happy to talk to you. And also just to do more nature programming in San Ramon. So like helping to lead birding programs and other nature programs that we're doing. We also have Crow Canyon Gardens that we're always looking for volunteer help with. It's an 8-acre organic garden. It sits on the site of the old Muds Farm to Table Organic Restaurant, which was at the forefront of the farm to table movement. And it was operational from 2007 or 1970 to 2007. And I'm trying to be a good steward of that land. So some of the things that I'm doing there is we have a lot of invasive English ivy, and I have been trying to find a way to do a removal project. The San Ramon Creek backs up to the back of that property, and most of the invasive ivy is along the creek bed. There is some poison oak mixed in, which is the main reason why I haven't started doing any invasive species removal yet, just because I want to make sure that, and I don't have a budget. So I'm also trying to figure out if I can get sponsors so that we can get some PPE, like maybe some Tyvek suits and gloves and things so that we can be in there without having to worry about the poison oak. And I want to start doing ivy removal. I know that you can use defoliants and stuff, but I'm trying to avoid doing any chemical like approaches to it because I want to be a good steward of the organic garden, and I don't want to leave anything that's going to have a residue or anything like that. So that's one thing that I'm looking for. I'm also looking for help if anyone knows anybody that wants to be a panelist. One of my panelists is maybe going to have to drop out for me on the April 12th one. So I am looking for a potential replacement for that. And just going forward, you know, anybody that has a passion that's interested, whether or not it's invasive species or anything nature, you know, if you want to just teach people to build garden boxes or whatever your expertise is, I'm interested in talking to you. You can do it on a voluntary basis, or if you want to become a partner, you can, there's a little bit more paperwork for that, but you can get paid because San Ramon does a 50-50 split. So once that happens, like you can do a workshop and you can charge money for the workshop. So yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to say. I know that was a lot, but we are trying to build here. And so everything's brand new. San Ramon didn't have nature programs before. We're working on building capacity where I'm super open to people's ideas. And you know, whatever the community is interested in, whatever you want to bring to the table, I want to find a way to make that possible. So that we can keep building. This photo is from our Plantify mushroom walk that we did, which was a lot of fun. And then all of these are from the Crow Canyon Garden. So these are our organic apple trees. We've got over 16 varieties of heritage apple trees. We've got grapes, lots of different things. And this was a seed and plant exchange that we did with the California Native Plant Resource Teams, which are part of the Kathy Kramer Bringing Back the Natives tour, which I'm sure probably a lot of people here are familiar with. If not, look it up. It's pretty great. The tour is coming up this April. It's a lot of fun. You get to go visit people's home gardens and see how they have converted their home gardens to native plants. If anyone has any questions or wants to collaborate with me, please feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to talk to you. And I also just want to thank Lisa for this opportunity. I'm glad that I could be here today.